Interest rates aren't going down anytime soon. Actually, they could be going up. So for many of us locally who may still need to buy a home or sell a house, it isn't the best news. WGEM's Raja Maples talked with a local professor and homeowner about what to do in these uncertain times. Raja?
A local historian says several factors have led to these uncertain times, including an auto worker strike, a labor shortage, and rising oil prices. Even though history has been known at times to repeat itself, Quincy University history professor Dr. Justin Coffey says we're living in strange times.
We actually have a labor shortage, and that's not something that this country is really used to. And with consumer spending so high, with oil prices rising, the Fed is concerned with volatility.
Adams County homeowner Sally Westerhoff has lived in the same house for 35 years. She listed her home about 2 weeks ago, and she's been shopping around for a new house for several months.
There isn't much on the market.
Westerhoff says even though she wants to downsize, she doesn't want to downgrade.
We want kind of the same quality of what we have, but less to take care of.
Westerhoff says she saw a flurry of interest when she first listed, but not much this week.
I think interest rates definitely are affecting.
Most of the markers for the economy are actually quite strong. However, food prices, oil prices still remain very high. And then when you get an uncertain factor like auto workers striking, it adds to volatility, and the market doesn't like that.
And even though mortgage interest rates might change throughout time, one strategy has remained the same: divine intervention to possibly increase a seller's success. They bury a statue of St. Joseph in their yard, then recite the saint's prayer to help speed up a successful sale. And I had never heard of that until this week. We have included more information about this long-time strategy on our website at WGEM.com. Daniel.
All right, thank you, Raja. And the Federal Reserve is scheduled to meet again at the end of October.